and goodwill on consolidation becomes 60,000. So 60% of the consideration paid is a goodwill, and there is no amortization and only subject to impairment. In IFRS, what it says is that asset you take it at fair value. So it will be a major revision which will happen. Another thing is that it also allows the intangible assets to get recognized at the time of merger. So if there are intangible assets like a customer contracts, like brand, all that you are taking which was not there in the previous balance sheet, that also you will account. So what will remain, as I have mentioned here by way of an example, is only 10%. So what then you are doing is only 10% of the value you are not amortizing, balance will go for amortization. While in our case, 60% remains. So that is like a time bomb. Because what will happen is that 60,000 at some point of time, it will go for an impairment. And at that point of time, you will suddenly impair 50,000 rupees. So in a way it is not right. So, and that is why you require IFRS to deal with that. IFRS goes further and say that okay, you have taken fair value, goodwill comes, whatever remaining goodwill comes, that also you test it further, identify a different asset for allocating that goodwill portion which will remain also. And finally, if you will not be able to identify any other asset, then only you take it to goodwill. So it is generally, I have not seen in a larger acquisition more than 5 to 10% going as a goodwill. But in India, I have seen 90% going as a goodwill. So that's a difference which is coming. Accounting for financial instruments. As I was mentioning, we have dealt with that unless you introduce 30, 31, 32, at least, you will not be saying that you are complying with the international accounting standards. And those standards are complicated, people will take time to understand and implement that. Of course, as I was mentioning that there is another standard which has already come, IFRS 9. It will be mandatory internationally from 2016 or 17. So there is a time period which is available. But by that time, we have to understand AS 3031 and then we have to introduce another standard. Is going to be a difficult thing. But at least we need to then deal with at least AS 3031. If we have to be in line with that. That's a major change which is there. Tax implication, just to give you a brief, that international experience says that IFRS used as a starting point for tax computation, which today our Indian GAAP is a starting point for our preparation of the tax returns. But with the introduction of Ind AS, that may not remain as a starting point because there are so many differences which will come. And if you have to deal with tax differences which are there, more or less the Income Tax Act is going to be in line with tax, whether you like it or not. A lot of people are saying that no, there are changes required. So, but still, I think we are going to be, have a different sets of records, if not accounts, we need to keep that. So that's going to be a major thing. We have a support that UK, Singapore, Hong Kong, New Zealand, many countries, IFRS is used as a starting point. Only in certain cases like France and Germany, a tax base and local GAAP are different. Tax based on local GAAP. There is a tax based on local GAAP. Only in Australia, tax computation is based on neither local GAAP nor on IFRS. So, just quickly, what are when new Ind AS also will come, the major difference is going to be in an Indian context on multiple element sales. Many times we have a bundle of goods and services attached together. When you go and buy an AC, you are given warranty, you are given 3 years free service. All that at the time of selling we don't account, or now people are accounting but in a different way. What they say is that whatever is going to be my service obligation, I will provide for that obligation. But what IFRS and Ind AS will require is bifurcating a revenue itself into a service for services and goods. So it's not like having a provision, but a revenue itself you need to bifurcate and account it in a different year. So here is an example how it will get accounted. And of course the tax implication of that if you will account like this, whether the tax people also will agree the deferment of the profit which is happening here. So that's going to be another challenge which has not been dealt with even by TAS at present. So we need to deal with that. Real estate sales implication, with the change in IFRIC 15, it may be possible that you may have to use a completion method and all your profit will come in the 4th year, while today you are accounting on a percentage of completion method, so it is coming in a different years, in over a 4-year period. So here also the question will come that when you are deferring your revenue, how it will be dealt with in income tax. But this will be what Indian GAAP and IFRS, there will be a change. Preferences, a major change here. It has been implied that it is a preferences which is redeemable preferences, because if there is a compulsory convertible preferences, still it will be treated as an equity. But if it is a redeemable preferences, then only it will be treated as a debt. And if it is optionally convertible preferences, then partly it will be treated as debt and partly it will be treated as an equity. But what I want to highlight here is that when you will treat preferences as a debt, whatever dividend which you will be paying will be considered as an interest and it has to hit your P&L account. So it will come as a part of your P&L. In my view, even a distribution tax which you will be paying, because that is also a levy on the dividend which you are paying, that also should come as a charge in your P&L. Financial guarantees, there is a major change in financial guarantees. I just want to highlight one point here is that even if you are giving a financial guarantee to for your subsidiary, what IFRS says is that you need to account that as your income, although no money is going to come to you. Okay? How you will account that? So what basically IFRS says is that you increase your investment carrying value in your subsidiary and account the liability or the credit, you account it as income. And that if you have given a guarantee for 3 years, then you account it as an income over a 3-year period. So that is what is being highlighted. Functional currency, there is a what will be allowed today is that we can have only Indian rupee as our functional currency. So we are not allowed to use a different functional currency. With the introduction of IFRS, you can say that I will use, because I am an export company, I am in a SIPS, I will consider my thing as a functional currency as a dollar or a yen or whatever they are exporting, and I will prepare my accounts on that basis and then convert into a rupee term. So what will be the implication is that exchange difference which arises on your net incremental value, that will go at an average rate and not at the closing rate, right? So if here average rate of USD is 40 and year-end rate is 45, that difference of 5 rupees is going as a part of a P&L in case Indian rupee is a functional currency. If dollar is a functional currency, 100 rupees will not come into P&L, right? So let's say that what are the global best practices, are we moving towards that or not? My personal view is that we are moving towards global best practices in laws and statutes. So our Companies Act, if you look at it, the provisions of a change of directors, so rotation of directors, rotation of auditors, NFRA, separate body, accounting standards will be promulgated by them, even auditing standards will be promulgated by them. They can take action on any chartered accountants. Although they are a member today, we are exposed only to the institute, and institute will have people who will look at from that angle, but now we will have a totally different thing. Lot of things coming on a related party transactions, disclosures, all these things will be yes, we have laws and statutes. The problem is going to be whether we will be able to implement it in a way which is required in the laws. The problem in India is that the laws may be good, but if implementation is not proper, then there is going to be a major difficulty. So I am tending towards no. Let us see that whether there is a change on account of that. So we also in India, we don't go by spirit of the law. We try and work out a paper, a theoretical paperwork and all that. We'll say that okay, we are complying with it. I think that mindset requires certain change. Unless because IFRS, if you'll say, it will mainly deals over substance over form. So when you deal with substance over form, you will be going by intentions and all that. And if your corporate governance is not proper, it is very difficult then to implement IFRS. And even in the Companies Act, only in the Companies Act what is happening is that now the penalties are becoming so larger that people will take the laws seriously. However, there are people who can deal in a different way for when there are penalties which and all that come. So we need to see how it will be effective. Another thing which I have seen is that there are a lot of outdated and redundant laws which goes on, it continues, and it harms actually honest people. So I think what is required side by side is that we need to do away with that. So unless that happens, we will not be able to apply global best practices, because like governance wise, people will say that okay, you will not have contracted labor, or you treat contracted labor as if it is your employee. So there are implications to that. However, if your labor laws are difficult, people will go for a contracted labor. So that's going to be our biggest challenge. What they have done in introduction of Ind AS, although we will not be totally complying with IFRS, my personal view is that it is a right way to deal with that, because we have our own standards. Certain things, carve-outs which are there, I think it makes sense, and that is why we need to have certain carve-outs. But what we need to keep in mind is that carve-outs should be limited, so that whenever there is a change required to convert that into IFRS, it can be done by any chartered accountant. They don't require a total knowledge of IFRS, because our standard will be equivalent to that. So they would have learned that earlier. So I think that is what is required. all the youngsters I think need to be proactive. Maybe some of us may not look at all the provisions which are there in IFRS, but you need to be proactive. Although at present there is no sort of indication that when IFRS will come, but IFRS or Ind AS is sure to come, so you have to get prepared yourself for that.
Sir, in the one of the earlier slide you had shown, it was clear that except in European countries, members of the EU and some other countries, IFRS has not been followed by most of the Asian countries.
Yeah.
So what is the reason? What is something?
No, Asian countries are following. I think that slide was that for the tax. Whether the tax
in the beginning when you
in the beginning.
Beginning you had shown the USA is not following. In fact, it is cannot be followed.
So this one you are saying.
Yes. So except the EU countries.
No. If you look at it, China, Egypt, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Philippines, all that are in line with that. Only they are just saying that.
More than 121 countries.
Yeah. I think at least 50% of bigger countries, means where there is a trade, international trade, I follow that.
One of the major most developed USA is not following.
Yeah, but because USA says that I have my own standards which are stricter than IFRS. Actually, they have a problem other way around. They are saying that my standards are rule-based. I will say that if you are doing a certain transaction, only this way it needs to be done. IFRS says that, okay, I am giving this principle, on that basis you work out that how the accounting needs to be done. In IFRS, there are a lot of choices which are available, and rightly so. Why choices are available? Because there are different countries dealing in a different manner. So the environment in different countries they have to deal with. In US, they will say that I need to deal with only US environment. So that is why it is easy to form the law or rules. For all the countries, you can't form the rules. So you have to be principle based. Then it may be possible that the institute, the respective institute or the respective regulators can follow certain rules based on that principles. So I think that is what is required. So in fact, RBI is doing the right thing. That RBI is participating in this financial instrument standards. What is coming out is that you have to, provide for your asset for a banking. You have to provide your asset based on expected loss. That is a new concept which is coming in IFRS. So RBI is actually participating and finding out what will be the implication in India and what needs to be done. That way, other regulator and mainly, MCA needs to participate. They should not dictate. After participating, they should come out with something. So just now, I think MCA is mainly dictating rather than, participating. So that is what I think will be required.
After this change of government in next election, are you expecting major amendments in the Companies Act or in the rules?
So if you tell me who will be the government, then only one can decide.
One thing is clear, this government will go.
Yeah, but if the third front will come, there will not be any change.
NDA government is more likely.
Yeah, so I don't think, they cannot change overnight. I don't think anybody will be able to change anything.
No manifesto is mentioned.
Yeah, in manifesto it is not mentioned. And I don't think government change will affect the accounting. Accounting has to be dealt with in a different manner. More to do with, how you want to represent internationally and how trade you need to do internationally, all that things. I don't. So to end with, whenever there will be introduction of all these Ind AS and new Companies Act and all that, the cost of compliance is going to get increased. And whether the industry people, actually it will be, our common interest to, pass on that to the industry that you have to, be ready with the higher cost. Otherwise, what is happening, what I have seen today is that you give services which is rightly required for all this kind of changes, but the clients are not ready to pay for that, or they will ask for the tender for such things also. Means I have Arvind Bhai will vouch for that before 20 years nobody will ask for tenders from the chartered accountant. But our services have become like a commodity, and that is where still if you give a quality service, I think the people should be ready to pay for that. So that industry should be made aware about that. So with that, I think I'll just complete that. Of course,
Last question.
yeah.
So with regard to consolidation, so supposedly I have a 10% stake in equity and I have a 100% stake in preference share, and because of which as per Companies Act, I become a subsidiary, then in my consolidated financial statement, should I restate only my 10% of the portion at equity method, or should I go line by line item? Because as previously said by you, as per normal accounting.
So that is what I had said earlier also, and I am saying now that once you say that consolidation is mandatory, you forget Companies Act. Okay, there are two views, but my view is that then you go by a definition which is there in the accounting standard, and on that basis you consolidate.
Now, as per accounting standard, nor does it fit in subsidiary, nor it fits in associate.
Yeah, correct.
So I don't do any consolidation.
So if you still you need to do consolidation, so at least you apply equity method and nothing else. Why you should have to apply line by line? See, line by line method is allowed because you are holding a majority stake. Otherwise, you are actually showing very high revenues, very high assets, and then you are showing a minority interest and adjustment. So that's not good. Mostly, in fact, that is where I will just tell you IAS. I forgot IFRS 11. They are changing the accounting for the joint ventures. Joint ventures now they are saying that you need to follow only the equity method of accounting. So instead of proportionate method of accounting for a joint venture, they are now IFRS is moving towards equity method of accounting even for the joint venture. So you can do it only 10% as an equity method. Thank you.
Since you are an accountant, and being accountant, we are aware of intricacies of the business to the accounting entries. As a result, we can do wonders. This is what was accepted by Harish Salve when his interview was printed in the Economic Times after he won the Vodafone decision. He says, I could win this case only because I was accountant. But as accountant, we pay very less attention to the accounting standards, and this we could see from the attendance here. How the accounting standards, but now I don't think so. We would be able to do it. So, because looking at the new penalties and everything coming in the new Companies Act, we need to reconsider our view on this. And considering this, we have kept this session of Jayesh Bhai, and he has gave the wonder.